Ledger pulse, there's a disconnect happening in the crypto market right now. On the surface, things look uncertain. You're seeing outflows, mixed sentiment, hesitation. But underneath that, there are signals forming that tell a very different story. And if you connect them, you start to see where this market may actually be heading next. Let's break it all down. This content is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. We'll start with something that didn't get nearly as much attention as it should have. Argentina's state-backed energy company is now moving into blockchain, and not in a small way. They've launched an initiative to tokenize over 800 million worth of energy assets on the XRP Ledger. Now let's slow that down for a second because this is important. We're not talking about NFTs, we're not talking about speculation. We're talking about real-world infrastructure, energy production, electricity contracts, asset management systems, all being brought on-chain. And it's being done through a platform designed to tokenize energy assets, track them in real time, manage contracts directly on blockchain rails. This is the kind of development that doesn't create hype overnight, but it builds a foundation for long-term change. Now, context matters here. Argentina has dealt with inflation, currency instability, economic uncertainty. So when a country in that position starts experimenting with blockchain infrastructure, it's not random. It's a response. Blockchain becomes a tool for transparency, efficiency, reduced reliance on fragile systems. And here's where it gets even more interesting. This isn't a startup experiment. This is tied to a state-backed entity, which means we're seeing early signs of government-linked adoption of blockchain at an infrastructure level. And historically, once systems like this start getting implemented, they don't go backwards, they expand. At the same time this is happening, there's another layer being added to the same ecosystem. Ripple is now working on integrating AI into the XRP Ledger. Now, on the surface, this might sound like just another buzzword combination, AI and crypto. But when you look closer, it actually makes sense. The focus isn't hype, it's functionality. They're looking at using AI to improve security systems, development efficiency, testing processes, network performance. Think about what that means. If blockchain infrastructure is going to support real-world assets, financial systems, institutional flows, then it has to meet a completely different standard. It needs to be reliable, scalable, secure. AI becomes a tool to help achieve that. And when you combine this with what we've just talked about, tokenized energy assets, you start to see something forming. An ecosystem that's not just being used, but being refined for long-term use. That's a very different phase of the market. Now let's shift to something a lot of people are watching right now, ETF flows. Because this is where sentiment and reality often diverge. Recent data showed Bitcoin saw over 200 million in outflows. Ethereum followed with tens of millions leaving. Solana also recorded negative movement. So naturally, the narrative becomes money is leaving crypto. But that's not the full picture, because when you look at XRP, something stands out. 0 outflows. Now think about that in context. When capital is actively rotating out of major assets, you would expect broad-based selling across the board. But that's not what we're seeing here. Instead, XRP is holding steady. And stability during periods of outflows can be very telling. This suggests holders aren't reacting emotionally. There's less urgency to exit. Positioning may already be more long-term. Markets don't always move based on what's going up. Sometimes the strongest signal is what isn't moving down. And right now, that's where XRP stands relative to the rest. So zooming out even further, because while all of this is happening at the infrastructure level, crypto is also becoming a bigger topic at the political level. Recently, Donald Trump made two statements that caught attention. He said the United States would become the global leader in Bitcoin and crypto. I got these posts here from Watcher Guru, and he also noted that Bitcoin is powerful and that more people want to be paid in crypto. Now, regardless of where you stand politically, that's not really the point here. The point is, crypto is no longer being ignored. It's entering the conversations about national competitiveness, financial systems, economic positioning. And once something reaches that level of discussion, it tends to accelerate. Because now it's not just developers building or investors speculating. It's policymakers thinking about how it fits into the future. And that shift matters. Here's where everything comes together. Individually, each of these stories is interesting, but together, they start to form a pattern. You have real-world assets moving onto blockchain, infrastructure being improved with AI, market behavior showing pockets of stability, and global attention increasing at the highest levels. This is not noise, this is structure. And markets tend to move in phases. First skepticism, then development, then adoption, and eventually recognition. What we're seeing right now sits somewhere between development and adoption. Not fully obvious yet, but definitely in motion. This doesn't mean everything moves up overnight. It doesn't mean volatility disappears, but it does mean the foundation is continuing to build. And that's usually what matters most in the long run. Because by the time everything feels clear, the market has already moved. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and focus on what's actually happening beneath the surface, make sure you're subscribed. Because in this space, the biggest opportunities tend to show up quietly before they become obvious. Please like and share this video. I'm trying to grow this channel. It's very new. I appreciate the support. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.